Good day, good night. Welcome to Euro Today. I'm Kevin Larme, joined as always by Duane Rollins, and we're back today to break down the semifinals, preview the final, and look at this week's Major League Soccer's results from midweek games, especially for the Canadian teams, as Montreal was playing last night against New York City FC. New England, top of the East, was facing the newly without Chris Armas TFC. And of course, Vancouver was trying to get a result after a tough run also. But first, the Euro, because is it really coming home if the semifinal is playing home?
Has it ever been home, as Kasper Schmeichel said?
Yeah, that was a good retort right there. Some quick wit from the Kasper, who's on vacation right now.
Who has lived in England for, the better part of 20 years, right? He's essentially grown up as an English kid. His dad played there, and then he's played there.
And he knew exactly what he was doing. And well, I guess he was, and I guess he didn't. Where do you want to start? You want to start with England? You want to start with chronologically Italy, Spain? Where would you like to go?
Where do I want to? I think maybe we'll go back to the football coming home England game is fresh in our memories. So maybe we should go back to the first game, the Italy-Spain game, and go from there. There's a lot to unpack here in a quick time. And if we don't get to everything today, we'll get it to tomorrow, certainly before we get going. If we don't get to Diana Matheson today, I want to congratulate her on a great career, wonderful ambassador to the game here in Canada. But maybe we'll get there. We'll see. But let's go back to Italy-England.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Italy and England 1-1 after regular time, and then we have extra time, no goals scored, and then we have penalties. Once again, Spain going into penalty, but this time it was Italy. Something had to give. Italy continues the streak, hasn't lost a competitive game since 2018. Hasn't lost any games, to be fair, since 2018 for the Italy national team. And they're on the way to the final of the Euro, having won once before this tournament. Italy with Chiesa at the 60th minute, one of the revelations of this tournament. Federico Chiesa, not only does he score important goals, Duane, he scores usually beautiful goals too, with a whole lot of technique shown and displayed in front of us.
Yeah, for sure. Look, we've talked about this a lot throughout the tournament, and any tournament, as it progresses, there starts to really evolve a favorite. It becomes pretty clear. I mean, in Russia, it became, I think, pretty clear from about the second game of the group stage on that France was probably your favorite. I think it's been about that the same way. Right from the first kick of the first game of the entire tournament in many ways, because Italy put that marker down on that first Friday, and they continued to. I thought the game on Tuesday was maybe skill-wise, quality-wise, among the best that we've seen in this tournament. Spain were very, they played well in that game, maybe as best as they played, but Italy was just a little bit more clinical. And that's it. That's the difference. I mean, at one point a stat popped up on the screen, Kevin, and you probably have stats popping up in your head all the day right now, but the stat was, and I don't know the exact numbers, but it was something like 822 completed passes to like 212 for Spain. And that's like, you just have to laugh when you see numbers. Wow. And it's just,
Here, I can tell you, and no, they're not just in front of my head. They're not just on the top of my head, they're in front of me too. 832 completed passes for Spain in this one against 319 for Italy. For whatever it means, also 65% possession for Spain, 35% for Italy. But what does it really mean? To me, that's the big difference, because as many pass attempts and possession you get, it's not like you covered a bigger distance. It's not like you created more chances for yourselves. You literally had 3 kilometers ran less than the entire Italy team too, which means that Italy was able to keep up with you, not press too much, and respect their stamina against the press and not fall into the trap of Spain That's beautiful managing, and that's what I've been telling this whole tournament. Roberto Mancini has been the best, I think, asset of this entire national team. Not to mention Salvatore Avanchi. That's the gentleman with the goatee and the glasses that comes with the binder and shows the national team where to place on the field. And they show an amazing display of fashion sense, of course, but also Mancini has shown an amazing display of tactical awareness.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of the, your middle-aged gentleman with high fashion senses, on the sidelines, you couldn't get much better than Spain, Italy. Yes, on Tuesday. I mean, that was some.
You're right. Never have I looked at a white polo or a white shirt and a dark gray pair of pants and be like, you know what? I'm going shopping tomorrow.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of style on the sidelines there. Unlike if you were watching the MLS games, Bruce Arena last night. But we'll get to that in the second part.
Well, some say that's style. It's just a very different type.
Yeah, it's a style of sorts. And then you're right, to get back to Mancini. The coaching arrangement they have there is perfect. Mancini is more of your elder statesman, your inspirational leader who's been there before, has won things before, can sort of inspire the troops, but he's not the tactical nuts and bolts guys. He's got his sideline guy for that, and it's working out well. But to get back to the point that you were making in terms of, what does the possession mean? What do those passes mean without an end result? And, well, clearly they don't mean – well, I mean, they get you to a semifinal of the Euro, but they don't necessarily get you over the hump unless you have that clinicalness at the end. And we've been talking about this in various forms throughout this year. I mean, we can go back to the Champions League final between Chelsea and City. I mean, City looked pretty at times, but they couldn't get the clinical finished result at the end, right?
And it's funny because when we'll get to talk about England using the blueprint of Chelsea pretty much in this tournament, how to get things done. Defensively, they conceded their first goal, but Italy was the second best defense in this whole tournament. Let's not forget about that. Before this tournament, they were the best defense. They were coming into all the point to 10 games without conceding. That's a whole lot of minutes. I think they actually went to 11 games without conceding a goal, so that's over 1,000 minutes without conceding a goal for Italy, and then they actually conceded in this tournament, obviously. But they're the second best defense also, and they're one of the best offense, at least in the efficiency category. And of course, you can criticize Immobile for his acting career on the soccer field also, all to you. I'm not gonna say that the guy doesn't deserve it. I'm not gonna either pile on him either, because it is what it is. Also, the play of Insigne, of Barella, of course, well, when we talked about just a couple of minutes ago, Chiesa, who's bringing to this team something also that is not only a defensive mentality that usually you expect with Italy, with an offensive flair, but still respecting that defensive shape. And it has created amazing soccer to watch. They have done it in a eye-pleasing way. The purists would be happy to see Italy play this way, because it's not only, it's how to say, catenaccio. It's not just catenaccio, it's also yoga bonito a little bit.
No, for sure. I mean, look, yeah, you can point to those numbers we just gave you. And, that if you just looked at it in isolation, you might think that there is, I don't know how to say park the bus in Italian, but you might think that, right? That's not what happened at all. It's just styles make fights, right? And that's what was going on. And I think when it comes to Spain, to end them real quick, you add a world-class striker to that lineup, which they don't have, and they haven't had in 10 years, and that has been the problem, then you're having a different conversation maybe today. But the reality is they don't. And they weren't able to find those goals when they mattered the most, and Italy was. And they continue to be the most attractive team in this tournament, the most, and it went to penalties.
Exactly. I was going to say, let's not necessarily dismiss Spain. It also was a crapshoot in a way. Yes, it is a skill, and we saw Donnarumma actually really do well here. He has historically done well in penalties. He had at one point in his career doing 37% of saves on penalties. Those are Nick Rimando type level numbers, which was the best in the world for a while, as in save against penalty percentage. It went down, and when he faced Spain at the start of that penalty shootout, he was at 24.3% save on penalties. So that means that every penalty out of 4, he stops. So 1 out of 4, he stops usually. And you know what? It's 4-2. Yes, some of them were missed, and, well, stats don't lie sometimes. Sometimes you can make the stats lie, but the pure stats here, Italy was better on penalty shootout.
And he's on his way to PSG, which is going to make that a very interesting sort of club situation in the fall.
Exactly. Now, he's not the only one going to PSG. There's a ton of players going to PSG, but you know what? There's a couple of defenders defenders or defensive midfielders like Verratti famously is for PSG, and having Donnarumma, they're aware of each other. That's not necessarily a bad idea to take a couple of pieces of the defensive core or defensive midfield and defensive backline and goalkeeper situation of Italy to maybe make your club better.
Yeah, and certainly it's real early to be talking about Champions League favorites, but you can't ignore that club if they make those odds. But at any rate, to get back to the keeper here, look, there's in basketball, the NBA Finals are going on right now. There's a saying: you can't teach height. He's what, 6'10"? I mean, that helps with it.
He's very tall and has the longest fingers I've seen.
Yeah, you can't teach height, and if you could add some technique to that, then what you've got is basically a brick wall. People have been talking about Donnarumma for years now, since he was 17 and broke into AC Milan. Like he's been there forever, and he's starting to really finally show that true form. You could argue that he is, for a long time, the best keeper in the world argument has been sort of restricted to a couple club teams in the northwest of England, Liverpool and cities. But I think you can add a third to that mix. And obviously the Bayern Munich fans are screaming right now at their device. But he's into that global elite, regardless of how narrow you want to define it, and will absolutely be a key component in this. Look, I want Chiellini at the start of the coin flip. We should talk about that. That was, where he's hugging people.
It's unfortunate that we don't have the rights to show videos, right? Because there's amazing videos of Chiellini throughout this entire tournament enjoying life in pressure-filled moments that everyone would be maybe cowering back into themselves and looking what they're made of. He's out there hugging people, smiling, exchanging high five. Totally the opposite of what people can think of the macho aspect of these two nations here. Seeing that aspect, it was beautiful. Seeing Chiellini enjoying life and embracing that moment and enjoying that moment.
Yeah, well, yeah, some could argue that there's an element of psyching them out too. When you're sitting there and you're that loose, you've got to be sitting there at Spain going like, "What does this guy know?"
How can he be this calm? How the heck is that guy calm? But anyways, at the end of the day, it's finished. Italy won 4-2 on penalties between Italy and Spain. Now, let's move to the other semifinal the day after at Wembley, playing at Wembley for the 302nd time. England was facing Denmark, and it did not start the best of ways for England, because at the 30th minute or so, there's a free kick. A beautiful free kick. What a hit by Damsgaard. And it's 1-0 Denmark, and the crowd goes really silent.
Indeed. And, I think a lot of the neuroses in the crowd sort of came out at that moment. And let's be clear here that free kick is a world-class free kick. It's the only set-piece free kick goal of the tournament so far, which is, I've been mixing in with the Copa.
Exactly. This ain't Copa America. So there's two things here. The free kick awareness of Lionel Messi. There's no Lionel Messi in this tournament. And goalkeepers are better in the Euro.
It's just funny. When they said that, I was like, wait, they're all in Copa. And I've also been watching CanPL, which has been a couple, and, MLS. So it all blends. But, for sure. It's a world-class goal. And, if you're England right now, and especially when you know how the result finished, you can kind of look at it and go, it's good that they allowed a goal, because, it's not a fight till someone punches you in the nose, right?
It's not a fight until someone punches you in the face, and it's how you react from there on. And how Rocky would say is how you keep moving forward. It's not how you get knocked down. It's how you keep moving forward and England moved forward with an own goal by Denmark, which tied the game.
Yeah, and look, everyone's making the jokes about own goals, the Golden Boot winner, and sure.
Well, because he is. Even if you slash that by half, he still is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that, though, to unpack. And part of it is just that, video replay and awareness makes it a lot easier to award own goals these days now. You see those little ticks and deflections that you might not have noticed in the past when it was just the referee on the pitch making the decision. Like things get overturned and moved, so they're more likely to call it that way.
We should maybe change how we view that too, because let's face it, some of these own goals we've seen, the ball was on target anyways, and it might have been a goal anyways, and it still got deflected, and they called it an own goal. And maybe we don't give the credit to the actual ball shooter there that actually put that ball on frame before it got deflected too. And then that's a threshold. That's hard to. It's subjective, I guess, at that point.
It's always going to be subjective a bit, and I think maybe here we'll get our hockey reference out of the way. Maybe, and deepest condolences, Kevin, for last night, Tampa Bay.
Nothing happened. Okay, nothing happened. It's just delayed until next year. At the end of this, it's just until next year. See, it's not a goodbye. It's just a au revoir.
Fair enough. Everyone's being very circumcised. Yeah, when it comes to the own goal situation, though, I think the two sports, hockey and soccer, should really combine how they look at it. Hockey always awards it to the last person who touched it to absurdity, and I think maybe there would be having some own goals in hockey would be
2 minutes before the one guy just touched the puck, and then I got a goal! Woohoo! I lucky.
Yeah, no, and trust me, I in my life playing the game, I have a couple goals credited to me. Whereas, I found out I scored in the way home in the car. So there you go. That happens. But in soccer, it's the same way. The Raheem Sterling forced that own goal. He didn't actually touch it last. The defender went in it, but if he doesn't touch it, Sterling's going to score it. So that's one of those own goals that just sort of happens. So maybe the guy that puts the ball into that space does deserve it in that case. I don't know. It's really kind of irrelevant, though. It was necessarily, it was designed by good play. It came off the heels, what 2 minutes before when Sterling missed the point blank in front.
I was just trying to be pedantic because you could. This was a game of two halves, but the halves were not 45 minutes. To me, the halves were 30 minutes. And then England for a whole while. Denmark had a few spots here and there. But the statistics would also agree that if you look at how this game was played, Denmark was on the receiving end of England. Denmark was not only not controlling the ball as much, they were also letting a lot of shots being directed on target, not only being attempted. And that was to their demise at the end because they created opportunities and you had that penalty. And yes, some say, it was an iffy penalty. It was VAR. Of course, everything has been reviewed. And it was one of the few penalties awarded in this tournament. And yes, we remember the Portugal-France game where there was penalties for you, penalties for you, penalties for you, Oprah giving penalties to everyone in this game. But in the entire tournament, there was not as many penalties as we see in tournaments like Copa, which is basically another scenario where Oprah is giving out penalties. This is not the case in the Euro. It has been pretty, I would say, stringent on the amount of bad calls by referees for penalty, at least soft calls, some would say. 21 total attempts for England, 10 of them on target. That's 48%. That's a lot of shots on target. And at the end of the day, you're either going to score or create yourself an opportunity. Sometimes it's a penalty.
Yeah, look, a couple points there that I'll address. First off, I mentioned earlier that the collective neurosis of the England fans all hit when Denmark scored. There was an exception, and that was the 26 players and the coaching staff of England. They did not react with neuroses. They acted with, okay, put their head down and got at it. And to me, from Denmark's goal on forward, it was really only one team was winning that game. Denmark did well to hold in, and Schmeichel was maybe the man of the match out there. They gave it to Harry Kane because he scored the winning goal.
Yeah, but when your goalie is the man of the match, as we've seen, it's not necessarily the best situation. Just go to add to your point, 58% of that possession was England, 42%, and that was enough difference to influence this game, especially late in the game.
Yeah, and look, to the Sterling dive slash soft call slash penalty. Um, Look, I saw the same replays everyone else did. Was it a borderline call? There's no doubt. Uh, was he touched though? Like, it's very difficult to have a rational conversation about the English national team either way. Because people are bound to react either with extreme hate or extreme love with them, and there's a lot of in the middle. I think if it was any other team, and I say this honestly, if it was any other team other than England, people would be talking about it, but I don't think that they would be holding it up as this great injustice to the game. He was nicked a little bit. He took a couple more steps forward and then started to fall, and then was hit again on the way down. Was it enough to draw a penalty? Well, in the referee's eyes, and the way that the VAR has been handling this all tournament, and we have credited them for this, I'm not going to stop now, is that they have took the threshold too hard, clear and obvious. Was it a clear and obvious error? Like I say, if you slow it down, the back of the heel does get touched by the knee. Look at it. If you don't believe me, go back and look at it. Look at it carefully. Take your bias away.
And is this a foul if it happens in midfield? Is this a foul if it happens in midfield? To me, that's also a threshold. So if it is, what's a penalty? A penalty is not, is this foul enough to give a goal? That's not what a penalty is. And we need to forget that. What is a penalty? Is there a foul in the box? That's a threshold. And if that is a foul anywhere else on the field, where it's a foul there too, that's the letter of the law. Call me pedantic. You probably are right if you do anyways. I can be aware. But that's also what the law says.
Yeah, and look, you can have a conversation about whether the laws should be adjusted to be more reflective of the modern game, particularly with video involved, and I would not argue with that. But until that happens, you have to call the game as it is. I can see the argument. If I'm Danish, I'm for sure not going to be happy with that call. And I understand that. That's the game, though. That's been the game for 100 years. It's still the game with VAR, and hey, England deserved the result in the whole. That was not the reason why the Danes lost. The Danes, I think everyone has given them a lot of credit throughout the tournament. We'll give them some credit here too. They played to the best of their abilities yesterday. They took that to the brink that they could have. They did get the lead. They got within 25 minutes of a shootout, which would have given them, I think, a chance with the way Schmeichel was playing. But in the end, the better team won, and the best two teams in the tournament, which rarely happens, are in the final.
And let's talk about that final right after this short break. You are listening to Euro Today with Duane Rollins and myself, Kev Laramie. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN. Subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube page, youtube.com/sports podcasting network. And we're back on Soccer Today, Euro Today. I'm Kev Laramie, joined as always by Duane Rollins, and now we're going to look at this wonderful game that's going to happen this Sunday, 3 p.m. If you are in the United States, it will be on ESPN. If you are in Canada, it will be on TSN and CTV in English. And of course, if you are a Francophone, I invite you to watch this beautiful game on TVA Sport, of course, in French, and on the main channel on TVA also this Sunday, starting at 2 p.m. Eastern, à 2 heures l'avant-match à TVA Sport.
Fair enough, yeah. And sure, if you're a little bit of a change up, if you want to watch Kevin's work, by all means, go do that.
I have to. They're probably not listening here, but if the commentator and play-by-play of the CF Montreal and also of this Euro, Vincent Détouche, of course, and Frédéric Claude, the play-by-play, listening, I want to congratulate them on their nomination for Gémeaux, which is a French version of Gemini, for their work on CF Montreal games over the last couple of seasons, for sure, but last year was for this year's Gemini, so congratulations for your nomination.
And we should probably tell our American listeners that a Gemini is Canada's version of the Emmys.
Exactly. So it's the French Canadian version of the Emmys. Congratulations for the nomination. It's fun to see the world of soccer represented in that category.
Yeah, fair enough. The game on Sunday, like I said, I'm going into the break. I think it is very difficult, again, unless you're an irrational England hater, which there are a lot of them out there, or an Italy hater, because there's a lot of them too. This is probably the most hated final in a long time.
Well, this is like if the Leafs and the Habs would face each other, right? It's the most hated teams, but also the most loved teams at the exact same time.
Yeah, exactly. And people were joking that you might as well just shut the city I'm in down. And I'm sure it'll be a little less in Montreal because it's more, if it was France, it would be the equivalent there.
It depends where you are. If you live on Saint Laurent, if you're in RDP, you're going to see a parade on Sunday if Italy wins. Because you saw a parade when they won a group stage match. So, by the way, it's an impromptu parade of just everyone with their flags and cars on the main street at the same time.
Yeah, but there is absolutely no doubt that the two most popular national teams, and I'm not even including Canada in this, sadly, are England and Italy in Toronto, and most of Canada, I would say, actually, because there's a lot of Italian influence here.
Yes, and by the way, if you are a fan of Canada, tomorrow Duane and I will talk about the Gold Cup, and we'll have some sort of a Gold Cup preview, and we will have tomorrow's show at around 11 a.m., just like today.
Yes, exactly. And we're pretty long today, so we'll probably touch a little bit more on our MLS games as well. But yeah, I think it's the best two teams in the tournament. And France had more talented, but they didn't perform when they needed to. So we're going to put them on a shelf for now. For sure, they could have been in this conversation, but they played themselves out of it with that loss to Switzerland. Overall, when you look at England not allowing the goals, we had a little questions in the group stage, particularly after the Scotland game. But it turned out, I think, that those were misguided and maybe a little early. What was happening was England was managing the tournament, and they managed it very well. And Gareth Southgate, there's a lot of credit for that. And they're in their first major final since 1966. Like, think about that for a minute. I had a friend text me, why does World War II seem like, it's not that recent history, but 1966 seems like ancient history. Like, there's an interesting dynamic there. And I think it's because there are still people that we know and are, that we can talk to that can remember 1966, and they were like children then. Whereas if you go back any further, it is legitimately history, just recent. You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird thing. It's a long time ago is what I'm saying.
Yes, but I also have maybe an idea why. Because the World War, you put it on a scale that doesn't start in 1890s or something, right? It's on a scale that starts when civilization starts, because it's in the history of civilization. When we look at 1966 in the soccer world, it's almost half of the entirety of the world of football. That's the difference, because the sport was born in, of course, in the mid 1800s, and eventually at the late 1800s, we've seen the international sport being born, and that's 70 years later, you got 1966, and then 75 years later, not less than that, 60-something years later, here we are. So, yeah, that's half of the existence if you put it on the soccer timeline.
Yeah, it predates. It's like, it's a BC when you're talking about what we all think of as the modern international game, because really that didn't start. And I know people don't like it when you throw the start of the Premier League out as a before and after, but there really is. And there's also, in terms of the international coverage of the game, there really is a before and after, and it predates it, right? Like when it's in black and white, it predates things, and it kind of makes it difficult to conceptualize it. So in many ways, this is for that if you were younger than, say, 63, 65, you do not remember England in a major final. This is the first time you've seen it. This is uncharted waters. It is not uncharted waters when it comes to Italy. Italy is back to their first major final in
not that long, because they were in 2012. They were there against Spain.
Yeah.
Famously lost 4-0 in the final of Euro 2012. Famously only won this tournament once. For Italy, England has never won the Euro, has never won the European Championships. And if you look at statistically speaking, of course, those teams are close to each other in all statistical aspects. Passing accuracy, England finished fifth in the tournament with 87.7. If you're looking at total attempts, Italy is second at 108. England is fifth with 58. There's a big disparity here, but we've seen Italy try everything they can to put the ball on frame. And that could be a good strategy. And you never know what can happen. A pounce, a recover, a ball, something that you can see. Jordan Pickford is not necessarily the most ball, rebound, controlling type of goalkeeper. Sometimes you find yourself in opposition. Tackles, defensively, Italy, 74 tackles in the entire tournament. The third, balls recovered, is really interesting to me because this might be influence the game result, right? The amount of recuperation you can have in the midfield, especially. It's going to be a battle of the midfield. It's not necessarily going to be just Insigne. Can Immobile and Insigne score more than Harry Kane and Sterling? It's a final. It's going to be cagey. It's going to be close. It's going to be a defensive, tactical chess match. But the amount of balls recovered could be interesting. Italy finished third in the entire tournament with 249. England finished fourth with 220. That is a good indication of what we can see on Sunday, according to myself, is the amount of balls recovered, which means chances from the other team that you stop because you stop their transition and their momentum, and how you can use that transition to your benefit.
Yeah, no, if this was a neutral site final, I would probably pretty confidently pick Italy as a clear 60-40 favorite in this final. But because it's at Wembley, this is pretty close to a toss-up to me. And you look at these two teams and you look at their front ends, and they have similar, star players that are starting to produce. You have, some injury concerns on the Italian side, a little less on the English side. They're pretty healthy right now. Both these teams have managed their roster, their full roster size, as well as any team in this tournament. And again, you look at Italy's history in major finals where they have one, as compared to England where they really don't in any real way. Like, half of these guys in the England team weren't even alive for 96, let alone, their parents some of their parents weren't alive in 66, right?
Well,
so that's
probably most of their parents were not alive in 66.
Yeah, exactly. Most of the parents were probably born in the 70s. You're right. So that's, that tells you all you need to do. Forget that. You do have an emotional sort of impetus there. There's no doubt in my mind that Wembley crowd is going to be hot, absolutely hot. They've been waiting a lifetime themselves for it. So,
and it'll be full capacity. That's the deal. Like, okay, fine. Disregard any previous restrictions. You can just pack the stadium.
Yeah, it's coming home, and by coming home,
what are you talking about? Death?
Yeah. Yeah, the Delta variant of COVID-19 is coming home.
One aspect of this competition that is also not to be forgotten is not only the defensive aspect, the defensive perfection of some of these teams. 5 clean sheets for England throughout this tournament. They conceded their first goal in the semifinal against Denmark, and it was on a set piece, and it was a worldy goal. It took maybe the goal of the tournament to beat the donut of England in that category. And then Italy, also second in this category with 3 clean sheets, looked good. And you could say whatever you want against opposition. Maybe England did not face the same amount of tough opposition, but they were facing teams that were actually better than anticipated, especially when we're talking about Denmark. But even other teams, they're a bit more cagey. And that side of the draw was easier maybe on paper, but in practice, those teams didn't make it easy. They were hard to play against, and they were different to play against than the other side of the bracket, which was basically so open. It's like, look, let's just go at each other and see who ends up on top. On the other side was like, let's hit each other and be cagey and see what happens.
Yeah, I think you can maybe throw that out at this point. I think if we haven't learned our lessons from the Champions League, where there was undoubtedly a hard side and an easy side, it didn't matter in the end, right? The easy side of the draw won the game because it's a one-game sort of situation. And it only matters what happens on the 90. And as I say, some of the intangibles are putting this in place. Italy is the better team. I am going to bet on Italy more moving forward than I am this England team, although this England team deserves a lot of credit and gets too little in my mind. The old argument for years and years has been England gets over-credited. They're overhyped. And that probably was true up until maybe the mid 2000s. Probably 2006 is when that narrative kind of fell on its face. The Wayne Rooney commercial where he was, in ruins at the end, if you remember that one. Anyway,
yeah. Yeah.
That World Cup, I
everything
think,
everything finishes with Wayne Rooney in ruins. Oh wait, those are parties. Sorry.
yes, there you go. As the oldest looking 35-year-old man on earth.
Oh man, he looks older than like a lot of people. It's insane. I was gonna say like my dad or my uncles, and like they're 60s.
Yeah. No, he didn't take care of himself the way that an elite athlete should. But at any rate, that England team undoubtedly was more sizzle than steak for years and years and years. But this one is not. Like, it's unfair to compare them to that, and it's unfair to say that there's an overhype of them, because if you listen to the previews of the, in England, coming out of England in the lead up to this tournament, there was none of them were saying England was going to win. And in fact, they were all like, I listen to Full Ramble every day, for instance, and they are like joke about it, and they, it's coming home, but they're terrified of it. They think they're going to lose every game. Like, there's a neuroses there. They're Leafs fans, for God's sakes. No Leafs fans actually thinks they're going to win. They always think they're going to lose. I'm sure a lot of them won some good money on betting on the Habs this year. Like, that's how it works.
Well, habits die hard. It takes a whole lot of time to lose the habit of losing.
Exactly. And this team deserves a lot of credit for being able to do it. And so does the FA for the changes they made and the directions that they've changed. And we talked about this in another show where I talked about the success England's had at the youth levels and how I think that matters psychologically, because they believe that they can win this thing. They believe that they are a good team, and they're showing it on the field, not just in the marketing side for once. And that's, interesting. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to listen to this and they're going to dismiss it outright because they are not English heritage. They are, Italian or Portuguese or whatever they might be. There's a lot of folks out there that for right reasons and colonial reasons, to be blunt, don't like England. And I get that. But this team is likable, and this team is good. And this team, to me, is a coin flip on Sunday. Again, I think Italy's better moving forward. If I'm betting on Qatar right now, I'm going to put more money on Italy than I am on England. In fact, I would absolutely call Italy the far favorite right now, along with France, because I think they'll recover to be the World Cup champions in 18 months, 16 months. God, it's soon. Anyway.
Yeah, and we'll get there for sure.
Yeah, but when it comes to Sunday, look, this is a really good opportunity for England. A really good opportunity. They're at home playing a major final. They could take so much off their back. And if they win this, like, God, for God's sakes, they're still singing about Bobby Moore. There's pop songs written about this. Like, there's a hero waiting to happen here.
Yeah, and the question is, who will it be? And will it be for England? Will it be for Italy? Before we go into predictions and look at how this could end up, there's still a couple of things needed to be talked about. The Golden Boot race right now, Ronaldo is still number one with 5 goals in this tournament. Patrick Schick is equal with 5 goals. Will the Golden Boot be saw in half and shared between these two wonderful strikers? Or can Kane score a brace on Sunday and maybe become the Golden Boot after being the Golden Boot in Russia?
Well, if he does, then Kane's going to be the guy that they're singing those songs about.
Well, already he has the most amount of goals for an England player in major tournaments, which is Euro final and the World Cup final. Those tournaments combined, he has now 10 goals, which is more than any other player that ever played for the England national team.
Yeah. Well, I suspect it will stay the way it is, but if Kane does manage to capture that, then there is little doubt who wins this game, because it's going to be England at that point.
Yes, exactly. And Italy has shared the goal scoring between most players. So there's Insigne, Immobile, Chiesa, even Bonucci or anyone else. Bellotti could become surprising. That's the question here. Now let's go into predictions. Who wins the trophy on Sunday? England or Italy?
I think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be a very competitive game. Ultimately, I have trouble looking past the talent and the performances of Italy And as much as I really respect what England has done here and think that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and there are a lot of intangibles in their fact, I have trouble getting past that. I do think Italy is still the deserved slight favorite. And so I have to go that way. So I suspect I'm going to predict a very narrow Italy win, maybe an extra time, maybe even penalties. But I do think that is a team that is just clicking in all ways. And there is one I can look at every position on England, save one, and say that they can match and that they are equal and that there's no question marks there. But the one that I have a question mark is a one that if there's a mistake will destroy a game, and that is the keeper position. I still don't believe in Pickford.
Yeah,
and
well,
I haven't.
Is it because of his choice of haircut? Is it because of...
It's because of his ability to make gaffes. And that's ultimately, to make a TFC reference quickly here.
He's your Bono.
He's my Bono. Because Bono can make great, look, I don't know. We're not going to have time to get into that game tonight. He made a great save in stoppage time last night to give TFC the 3 points that they desperately needed. And I totally respect the fact that Alex Bono has that in his game. But he also has the ability earlier in that game. He almost had a damn cross float over into the goal. That's Pickford to me. So there you go. So I'm going to say Italy 1-0. I'll say Italy 1-0.
All right, 1-0 Italy, according to Duane, in extra time or just in regular time?
I think it's going to end in regular time. A goal around the 65th minute. Immobile will say 65th minute. There you go.
Interesting. I'm going to go with all the intangibles that haven't been there for a while. And that's the fans. That's the whole country. But that's also a unified England. I've never seen a national team being supported this way. There's no controversies. We're not talking about who's drinking with who. There's no racial controversy against Raheem Sterling, which is amazing. The amount of bad press and amazing, terrible waste of newspapers has been done on Raheem Sterling over the years is mind-boggling. And this time it's for amazing, beautiful reason that we're talking about these players. And that has to be part of something. It has to be part of it's coming home. It's going to stay home. It is home. The trophy is literally in London right now. But on Sunday, it'll be lifted at Wembley on that very place where over 100 years ago, for the first time, 3 Lions were put in a badge, an 11-person jump on a field and kick the ball around for England. And for the 302nd time, on the holy ground itself, the home of football, the 3 Lions will roar.
55 years of pain never stopped us dreaming. It's coming home. It's coming home. There you go. Kevin says it's coming home, folks. Book it. It's coming home.
I said it's coming home. I have chills. It has to come home. I had my one part of my genealogy win in 2018. It's the French part. On Sunday, it's going to be for the old continent, but for the other side of my heritage.
There you go. All right, it should be a good game. I'm actually, Well, I think that's football is going to win, Kevin. I'll end it with that. Football is going to win. It is the best 2 teams in the tournament. This is the final that the marketers would have wanted, and it's the final that football fans should want because it's the best 2 teams playing in a stadium that has historic importance, and it has a narrative that you're never going to get back. This narrative, it's very rare that this kind of narrative exists. So,
exactly. It's going to be amazing. On that note, we'll wrap the preview show right now. We'll wrap today's show. Until tomorrow, you can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minute. You can follow myself at Kev Laramie. And you can follow this show at Soccer Today SPN. Monday, Soccer Today returns. We're back to the normal format, looking at Major League Soccer and the world of football with a soccer perspective. That is back on Monday. Tomorrow, of course, we'll look at the Gold Cup. We'll look at international soccer. We'll even look again at the news and the news cycle heading into the beautiful game that's going to happen Sunday, Euro Final. And again, I'm thinking that 3 Lions are going to eat some pizza on Sunday. And until then, to my Italian friends, I salute you. Rocco, if you're listening, I still love you a lot. And until next time, have a great soccer.